Imagine we took all the money in the world and divided it up equally among everyone on Earth. Within a surprisingly short time, that wealth would funnel right back into the exact same pockets it came from. The people who were wealthy before the experiment would soon be wealthy again, and those who were struggling would find themselves right back where they started. We naturally tend to look at an empty bank account and diagnose the problem as a lack of money, but an empty account is actually a symptom. This graph illustrates the actual root cause of stagnation. You can see a volatile line representing your income suddenly spiking upward, but notice how it remains anchored to this heavy, static baseline at the bottom. That baseline is your personal development, your current inventory of actionable ideas. If someone hands you $1 million, your income spikes. But unless you quickly grow your mindset and skills to become a millionaire, that wealth inevitably snaps right back down to match your actual level of development. Unearned windfalls disappear because the individual hasn't evolved to manage them. Success is something you attract by who you become. It is not something you can chase down. If you want to build lasting financial security, you have to prioritize your own internal growth over your external output. You have to work harder on yourself than you do on your job. A standard education will predictably yield standard results. If you want to achieve outcomes beyond the mathematical average, you have to transition to self-education. The entire purpose of self-education is the systematic, intentional acquisition of new ideas. It is the active process of curing that deficit of knowledge we identified earlier. The most reliable method to find these ideas is reading. Almost everyone who maintains long-term success shares a deep curiosity that drives them to constantly consume challenging, instructional material. This diagram shows the true mechanical benefit of reading: time compression. By studying someone else's documented experiences, you are compressing 5 years of their painful trial and error into a few hours of reading. You do not need to read late into the night. Setting aside exactly 30 minutes a day for focused reading is enough to start accumulating high-value concepts. Consistent exposure to this concentrated external knowledge acts as a catalyst. It is the only reliable method to artificially accelerate your personal evolution beyond normal limits. The second way to acquire life-changing ideas is to purposefully place yourself around individuals who have already achieved the outcomes you want. A highly effective strategy is to find someone wealthy and offer to buy them dinner. You invest $50 or $80 of your own capital to secure 2 hours of uninterrupted conversation. This diagram visualizes the math behind that dinner. That single small investment node can result in a transferred concept that branches out to geometrically multiply your future earning potential by 2, 3, or 5 times over your career. You can also acquire a massive amount of data continuously and passively simply by watching. High performers repeat specific patterns of behavior that you can identify and replicate. But you have to distinguish between sight and insight. Sight is watching how a successful person shakes a hand or walks into a room. Insight is using your mind to analyze the mechanics of why they do it and what exact results it produces. Once you gather these observations, you cannot trust them to your biological memory. You must document them externally in a physical journal. Securing these ideas on paper allows for constant, repeated review. That repetition is the required physical mechanism that forces a concept to take root and eventually show up in your lifestyle and your bank account. Accumulating these ideas without building a physical framework for action turns your learning into a liability. It is like building a massive, highly complex industrial machine that never gets turned on, sitting motionless and gathering dust. You cannot wait for external forces or other people to trigger your actions. Self-motivation is a strict, non-negotiable requirement because it is the only kind of motivation that actually exists. The process of execution always starts with small disciplines. You make a list of minor tasks you control and execute them immediately. Here is a diagram of how that discipline scales. Every small input action cycles through this feedback loop and visibly expands your core capacity. You are literally building the biological muscle required to handle major challenges. It is crucial that you do not try to beat this system. There is always a temptation to look for cheap answers, cut corners, and shade the effort once you learn how the mechanics work. If you compromise on doing things the right way, even when the right way takes longer, you will inevitably wind up with a cheap life. Mastering these small, foundational habits gives you a compounding advantage. These daily tasks ensure you are ready when high-stakes opportunities or sudden crises arrive. If you want a mathematically precise method for predicting your future, simply look at the exact trajectory of your last 5 years. Without a deliberate intervention, the next 5 years will look exactly like the last 5. Maintaining your current baseline of behavior guarantees your current results, completely neutralizing any hope of accidental success. Look at this layout representing the next 5 years at a splitting point. You face an immediate, unavoidable necessity. Within the next 24 hours, you have to make a decisive change to your routine, no matter how small. Complete transformation of your income, your personality, and your lifestyle is entirely possible, but it remains a conscious choice, one that only you can initiate.